Wednesday, April 3rd, 2004. This is an open meeting of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees. It's being recorded in the Merriam Room at the Auburn Public Library, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order, March 12, 2020, which suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location due to the COVID-19 virus. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Vision. Is anyone else recording this meeting? Okay. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the Auburn Town website on Friday, March 29, 2024. Please permit me to confirm that members of this body and persons anticipated on the agenda are present. Matt Toth.
Present.
Vera Corain.
Present.
Erica Briesacker.
Present.
Lindsay Baker.
Present.
Steve Redding.
Present.
And Mary DeCourcy, myself, present. Town employees participating, when I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. Molly Hulser, Auburn Public Library.
Present.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will begin the meeting. Before we go to the minutes, I just want to take a second to talk about our last meeting, there was a little bit of tension that I want to be able to take a minute and address, because I don't want to feel that people at the meeting can't be free to share their own opinions. Just want to explain that in our past BOT meetings, there was a real sense of tension based upon the fact that when we would have goals in the meeting, oftentimes there was a sense that it became a kind of a library director-centric meeting, and it became very tense. And one meeting specifically that it came to a halt, and we've been able to shift away from that, was on May 3rd, 2023. The board came together, and we were trying to finalize a collection policy. The meeting went on for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And in that meeting, I really stated a hard line that this is a committee. Everybody has a voice. Everybody needs to feel present and feel able to participate. It shouldn't feel in any way as though there are camps, or that we're in there shouldn't be any sense of inhibition. I just want to share that with everybody at the board. It really is important. This is a committee. We are appointed and elected. We serve the people. But the goals that I'm really excited about, which I will share with you in our next meeting, that I just want to give you a couple quick pride outcomes. This year, we're very prideful to say that we have Lindsay Baker. In partnership with the Board of Selectmen, she was able to be appointed. In addition to that, a second issue that has been really positive is improved communications and the quality of our BOT meetings, thanks to the library liaison, Molly Hulser, and the support of the town manager and the assistant town manager. Our collections policy, I just want to give credit to both Vera Corain and Matt Toth. This is the first time in Auburn, Massachusetts history that we've had a collections policy. They pushed it. All I did is show up at the meeting and listen and learn. But that was a really exciting outcome. In addition to that, just two more positives that we feel really good about. The APL Friends, they have full access to the APL library from the front door to their storage space, which has been provided here at the library. We're very excited because they have important work. And then finally, tonight we're going to talk about the strategic plan. We're going to look at the tactics, which are also referred to in other venues as metrics or rubrics, and take a look at where we're at. And I hope to have a rich conversation with everybody about how we're going to move forward. So I just want to start there. Please feel free, everyone. Have an opinion. We can disagree, agree, but it needs to be safe for everybody to have a position and to support that position. So the first item on the agenda is looking at the notes from the last meeting. Can I look at your agenda for 1 second? Yes, thank you. So we're going to review the meeting minutes from March 6, 2024, which Steve has been kind enough to provide for us. If everybody could take a few minutes to take a look at the notes.
I'm in. No, it's just a kick at the page. There we
It's
go.
okay, I'm sure too.
I'm better now.
Your agenda, you know, I have one right here somewhere.
There's one right here.
Thank you, Matt.
No, I can't get that one either.
All right, has everybody had enough time to read the minutes? Yes?
Yeah, I have a, excuse me.
Yes, please. Did you have?
Yeah.
These are incredible, by the way. They really
You're a good
are.
note taker.
Thank you.
They're,
Thank you.
I thought we had good ones before. These are really good.
Yes, agreed.
In number 4, when we talked about the library director's responses to our questions because she's not here, they are available, those, it says in the minutes here, they are available to any resident upon request to the library director. That should be upon request to the town clerk,
Okay.
because they'd be attached to minutes.
I agree, and they will be for this meeting as well.
And Lindsay, I just have a question on page 2.
Okay.
You said something about there was an email in that point 4 or point 3, that there was an email explaining that this was opportunistic.
I don't have it open.
That's
I
okay.
can look
That's all
for
right.
it, but yes, we received, I think, 3 emails prior to the last meeting that gave kind of
Those were updates.
real-time updates. And
Yeah.
in one of those, there was a mention, I think I had read it out at the time, the sentence that said that it was based on, that basically resources and the budget had come together at the right time. That was my read on it.
Yeah, I found out that that was not correct, but I just wondered if there was someplace in an email, and I'll look at that myself. That's okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No, I remember that.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the minutes?
Maybe perhaps those emails should just be appended to the minutes if we're talking
Well,
about them.
You know, I think that's what we will do,
Yeah.
because I know there was a question about the responses to the questions, and again, going back to the two-hour, 20-minute meeting, we're not gonna have 2-hour, 20-minute meetings. Everybody here is committed, and we're gonna keep the meetings tight to 45 to an hour. So anything that anybody wants access to will be included, so thank you for pointing that out. And that would include emails, that would include, you know, responses by the library director, all of that will be made very transparent. Did you have any other questions, Matt?
No, I didn't have anything else.
Okay, do I have anyone to vote for the approval of the minutes? So that would be Matt T. Anybody, can I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Erica. And can I just go through a quick roll call? I will support yes for the minutes. Vera Kareem?
Yes.
Stephen Redding?
Yes.
Matt said yes, right?
Yes.
Erica's yes. Lindsay Baker?
Yes.
Yes, and Molly, I know that you don't, you're a library representative, but I still want to include you. Would you support the minutes? All right, so they are approved. We are going to move on to the review of the director's report, but I just want to point out an email that I got from Jean, which is important. Thank you both for having that dialogue. At the end of the email that she sent me, and I sent it to all of you, so it's included, there's an asterisk at the last paragraph, and it says, a number of patrons have asked that responses to the questions be read at the meeting by the director's representative. That can be a lot of reading. So for this one, I will truncate them. I'm going to move that we are not going to read the responses, but I am going to include them in the minutes, so they're transparent to everyone after this meeting. These minutes are approved, and I'll just attach these. but I'm not going to extend any sort of meeting time to reading very long-winded responses, and everybody can have access to those. So, would you like to present the director's report? Molly, thank you.
Molly Holzer, one of the administrators at the Auburn Public Library, and a direct report to the library director, Jean Collins. In Jean's absence, I present the director's report as written by her. If the board has any questions regarding the report, I'll convey them to the director, who will provide a response by email within 1 to 2 days. And if any members of the community have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact the director via her email or by calling the library and asking for the director. So, on facilities, additional repair to the double doors at the front of the library. They are working currently at this time. Ongoing updates to the children's room expansion have been sent to the board by email, and the most recent one was also attached as part of the packet. We continue reading, relocating, updating, deleting, purchasing new titles, and reshelving. In addition, thousands of materials have to be dusted due to the sanding process, which we work on continuously. The position of deputy director has been posted to the MBLC and the Town of Auburn website, and a copy is also attached as part of the packet. For technology, the catalog update, Aspen Discovery, we are getting past the glitches and the learning curve. There's still some bells and whistles to be explored, but feedback from our patrons and patrons in other libraries has been positive. The January, February, March newsletter was submitted to the town manager's office on Friday, March 28th. They published that on the town website. I read to children at Bryn Mawr's Community Reading Day last week, and the director or another staff member will be reading at Swanson Road School this week.
Awesome.
And the Spring STEM Beginnings grant was awarded, so we'll be doing that program again. Finance and budget. After meeting with the town manager, assistant town manager, and CFO, the director presented the FY25 budget to the finance committee on Wednesday, March 20th. The budget was approved. She also requested a transfer from FY25 capital funds for technology to be moved to FY26, which was approved. The director also provided a copy of the trust fund report, which was attached as part of the packet here. Okay, trustees wanted to review that. And the tactics report is also attached as part of the packet. And just a selection of some of our upcoming programs. We're doing an Eclipse program in-house for children 6 to 12. That's this Friday. We're also distributing the solar eclipse glasses to the public by reservation. The David Clark Company is bringing Air Force suits this Thursday. We are beginning planning for the summer reading program. We'll be doing the butterfly kits. There is the Rosie the Riveter program. The Preparing for Kindergarten puppet show. The Drumming Alive program. The Petunia and Tomato Plant giveaway. The Little Sparks Theater. The Hands on Nature, Owl Pellets, and Wildlife Tracking.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd like to comment on the deputy director of the Auburn Public Library position. I think it's another lost opportunity not involving the Board of Trustees in conversation about this, and I want to at least note that.
Okay.
What I was very happy to see in that, there's a lot of things in the
The bullets.
yeah,
Yeah.
that I would have liked to have seen, but what I did like was recent and relevant full-time supervisory and other experience in a public library. And then, again, varied and broad-based experience in a public library. I think that really is critical. And I was concerned on page 2 on the top of that, where it talked about Auburn's governance structure. The Board of Trustees was not mentioned at all in that. I think that's quite a significant
Omission.
yes. And then I found the credentials interesting. The MLIS and MLS were fine, and then all of a sudden, we've got candidates with related master's or bachelor's degrees. And I'd be concerned that we'd stick with the MLIS or MLS certified public library directors. When it comes to finance and budget, one of the things that the Board of Trustees has not done in recent years but did in the past, we were not involved in the conversations. That's probably our fault, because I'm not sure that we've raised that question, but there was a time when we did that. Plus, if there were any concerns about the budget and disagreements, but we could actually go to the town meeting to get whatever support we needed for the library. So that's the concerns I had in regard to that.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I see that it's listed on the MBLC and the Town of Auburn website, but I hope that we promote this position through other more traditional job-seeking platforms in order to cast the widest net to get, you know, the most best candidates
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, yeah, I know Steve Redding, you brought that up back in the spring of last year, the use of Indeed, and I know that we did use Indeed. There was a process with an assistant director. They went through the process, they did, I believe, use Indeed. So, if we could make note of that as well, so you're saying in addition to the Auburn, the MBLC, but also the Auburn website, we want to see more expanded
Yeah.
opportunities to advertise.
Absolutely, we should
Okay.
definitely be hitting Indeed.
Okay. Any other thoughts? No? So we'll move on to expenditures. I just want to make sure everybody has the paperwork, because we have multiple files here. So I think I see Lindsay, you do. Molly, I'm sure you do, but I also have extras over here. Steve, you do?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Molly. If you go ahead, thank you.
Does everyone has a copy of the expenditures, and
Yeah.
if there's any questions? Yeah.
It's this one, right?
Yes, that's correct.
No,
This one, the
no,
bills
yeah.
payable.
Yeah, there's a chunk of them, Steve,
Yeah,
all together.
got it.
I printed them out in order that I received them, so. So they would look like everything from all the math
No,
pages.
this-
Yep, yep. Fiscal, this is the fiscal budget, okay.
Yeah.
And these, all right. All right, Molly, thank you for your patience. So any questions from the board? So, yeah, my only question, Molly, is page 3, it has recap numbers, is that an extension of another page?
It's on page 2.
Okay. I think I have them on
Aha.
before. Okay, wait.
Well,
Got it.
it's,
Okay,
it's
got
what,
it.
it's the one that says page 1.
Okay.
And
Page 1?
is it
Yeah.
like this, so it carries
Yep.
across?
Okay, that's what I think, that's what I'm asking.
Hmm.
So I have
Yeah,
page 1
six
starts with
and
overdrive, page 2 is PO bid number, and that goes down to recap and numbers. Page, wait a minute, this is a cover pages. I'm sorry, I think I have the last page in the wrong order.
So it's, the recap is, lines up with the Eversource
Okay.
CDWG Colonial Glass Home Depot.
Okay,
And the 1,400 is the subtotal of the Home Depot.
okay.
We
Excellent.
would be totally lost without you, right?
Yes, we would, because I have 1, 2, 3, and the page that says Town of Auburn, and it starts with 24-610 overdrive, is that is that intended to be the last page?
That's the one I have on top.
Yeah, okay.
March 26th.
Okay, cover page.
There are a few bill schedules here, so there's multiple page ones.
Okay, that's why, that's what I got confused, okay. Does anybody have any questions about the expenditures?
Not about the expenditures, but about the budget.
Okay,
Yeah. First of all, just because I'm not familiar with it, when does the fiscal year start?
June, it ends June and then starts July.
And, okay.
July
Right,
1st, right?
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions about the expenditures or the budget team? So if we do not, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. If we could, we're going to review the tactics. I sent everyone the tactics. The library director provided me, at my request, by Monday evening. I apologize that I was wiped out at work and I wasn't able to get that until Tuesday, so I apologize for that. But, I'm just gonna start out, just because I'm very familiar with rubrics, which is what we call tactics in the school systems. And my only concern, and this is general to a number of the outcomes, there's nothing measurable. So when we talk about evaluating anything, whether it's a person, a program, a budget, or whatever, we talk about what is concrete, specific, and quantitative. And usually what we do is we create goals, but then we create some sort of benchmarks that we can move through. And my concern as I look through it, and I know a lot of the language is language like many, something is many, it's none. It's not something that's mathematically quantifiable. So I would just, that's a big piece in terms of whenever we're looking at anything, what is the goal? What is our desired outcome? When is the outcome? How are we gonna measure that? And then what is the metric or the tactic or the rubric that we're going to do that with? So that's just a general statement after looking at all of the feedback. Anybody else on the board?
Well, I of course would have that concern, because I've been talking about that for years, about having some quantifiable data about what we do. But this is the first time we, at least since we established this in
Yep.
2020,
Yep.
we at least have some information about what's happening.
Agreed.
And we have never been able to get any information, and I'm appreciative that the town manager
Yep.
and the assistant town manager
Yep, Agreed.
has been in support of our work to be able to get this information.
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, I've gone over these, and I don't know whether we ought to talk about the first goal, or the second, third, or whatever goals, or what do we want to do with
How do we
this?
wanna move forward? That's what I
Yeah.
wanna ask too.
That-
I wanna open that up to the board if we can. I don't wanna interrupt you though.
No, I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I wanna
It's
open it up
okay.
to the board. As I said, everything I've ever done, because I'm an evaluator of programs, I create systems. The two things I always look at when I create a system is, the person who runs the program should be interchangeable. It shouldn't be about a personality, it should be about the role of somebody moving it forward. So that, I always have that in my mind. It shouldn't be about a person, it should be about a system. And then the second thing is, how do we decide whether or not we are measuring the right things? How do we decide in what time frame do we take a look at those things? And I just wanted to just open it up to the board, because this is the meaning of our body. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to evaluate things, we're supposed to create policy, like the collections policy, and this is another opportunity that we have to just really be creative and collaborative. So opening it up, go ahead, Erica.
So my first instinct is assessment's not something that just comes naturally.
Right.
And I'm using assessment language because I also am in education.
Right.
And so, talking about what is accessible, what's actionable, how we understand what's complete, what isn't complete, I think
Right.
this is a good starting point,
I agree.
because then we can say, okay, we don't have enough information here, what does complete mean? How are we measuring that? How are you measuring it?
Good
How would
points.
we? And so I think having that to get a sense of what, so, for example, just in goal one, pursue, number two, pursue programming collaborations with Auburn Public Schools, moderate. Like, I would like to know then what sort of spectrum we're talking about. What is incomplete, what's moderate, what's complete, and
Right.
that did not have to be ready to go here, especially because it's a culture that's evolving over time.
Mhm.
You know, what is moderate now might not be moderate next year.
Okay.
What is moderate now might have been complete last year.
Okay.
And so getting a sense of how we're measuring this, what we see as the scale.
Right.
Not to get like overly detailed about
No.
it, because then we could sit and spin our wheels in
course.
defining what moderate means, and nobody wants to do that. But also getting a sense then of, you know, in the director's estimation, she's put moderate, I would love to know more about that.
Okay.
Like, you know, some initiatives have been started, options are limited, so, great, meaning what? I'm always gonna say meaning what. But
Okay.
also because, you know, I'm used to it from the school end, not
Right.
from this end. So from, like, this is instructive for me to understand too, what we're looking for to be complete.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So what does complete mean?
That was a
What
lot of
does
word
moderate
salad, I'm
mean?
sorry.
So it's really about wanting to understand the definition of, like, what are these terms referring to? So if there was a scale, for instance, beginning, we call, again, going back to education, we say, what do we say, emerging skills, we say proficient skills. We measure it, and usually there's a definitive way to measure that.
If I may.
Yep.
So,
Please.
both of you guys are looking at it from a school perspective.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
that might, oh,
I
it's
know.
okay,
We
it's
are.
allowed, we allow that.
It's the world of it.
It's our world.
But that may not necessarily be applicable here. Like, so
Mhm.
we put out a list of tactics, and for the record, I don't like that they're called tactics. I would prefer something like metrics, because I think it's just a more accurate word for what we're doing here is, we have a set of goals in the strategic plan, and we want this measurable X, and I think X is metrics.
Right.
So I propose we change that name.
Okay.
But we took our first shot and we got the responses, and now we can see, okay, does it work for us? Are we asking the question we mean to be asking? Are we, you know, when we look at the response, the whole response, I actually like the answer to number 2 because, okay, moderate. So we have worked with middle school with library cards, book clubs for high school, and
Yep.
teen advisory group. And then later on, we touch back on teen advisory group. So I mean, you're right in asking, does moderate mean there was a hope on the part of the library director to do more programs or to get more engagement? Is this an opportunity for us to simply ask a follow-up question? Because I do like that they're listed, so that's the thing I would like to keep, is we put it out there, let's get examples. The first question is a little bit hard for me to understand, establish program performance standards. Perhaps that should have been us.
I'm sorry?
Except
Say that
perhaps
again,
that should.
because that's important, what
So
you just
goal
said.
1, program and service tactics, metrics.
So it says.
Number 1 is, establish program performance standards.
Right.
And the response is formal reporting has been done via some surveys. Responses are always very light. People prefer speaking to us directly. This is stuff we already know, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe we should have established the performance standards, but now we know.
I don't think that's our job.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
you know,
fair.
I
To do
don't know.
that. This was written, it was supposed to be so that a person could actually, what are the standards? What are those program standards? What do you want from those? What are the goals? Does a program have 5 goals or objectives? Does it have a way it's gonna be measured? What are we gonna do differently if the outcome isn't as positive? You know that if you have a conversation after a program with a group of people, you're going to get positive comments. That's not much of an assessment tool. But if you establish program performance standards ahead of time, this was a huge, big deal. I mean, it's number 1 in that first goal.
Okay.
And this was really the hope that this would come out with some real straightforward performance standards. And instead, we really have, formal reporting has been done in some surveys. There were surveys, I believe last May, we did have 2 or 3 surveys. I'm sure there were more than 2 or 3 programs. But the responses are always very light. Well, of course, they're going to be light if you're asking them right there.
Right.
Give them the chance for some kind of privacy,
Right.
and maybe they'll even be better. who
More
knows?
accurate, yep.
But I think if we have to go into the details of defining and writing out program performance standards, then we ought to be hired by the library
Okay,
for
fair.
positions. But maybe what we need to do is to provide more information about what it is we're looking for. I thought we had done that with the strategic plan. But part of it is, in all these years, we've never had a chance to have any discussion
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
until now.
Right, right.
If
Go
I
ahead.
can, if I can jump in.
Sure.
Each of us comes from a different background.
Yeah, that's
Which
really
is good.
important.
You know, planning
Right.
and strategic, you know, strategy and stuff like that. So I come from a project and program management background. And we use a kind of a simple tool for coming up with goals, objectives, and I would say that you know, we have the goals,
Yep,
and what is below the goals, what we're calling tactics. For me, that would be an objective.
right,
Okay, but language is language.
yep,
And what we use is called the SMART tool. And
yes.
it's an acronym that just is a mnemonic for specific,
measurable,
measurable, attainable,
Attainable,
realistic,
realistic,
and time-bound.
Yep, time
Okay.
frame, yep,
And each of these, for me, each of these objectives or tactics should be written in, you know, with each of these aspects in mind.
right,
And, you know, we have a part in that, but also the library has a part in that.
right, I agree.
And and these should really come out of a dialogue between the library and the board, in terms of what are the details of this? You know, how can we make established program performance standards more specific?
Right,
You know,
right,
by which date? You know, is it month
Exactly.
6 or year 2 of the 5-year plan? Or,
Agreed.
you know, what is it? You know, that type of thing. So I think we have a responsibility, and I'm not talking about for this one. This one's already done,
right,
okay? But for the next one,
I agree with you.
we have to find out a way to dialogue with the library on this, to
I
agree
agree.
upon
100%.
these objectives here,
Yep,
yeah?
yep.
Agreed.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Can I go back to, because, oh, did you, sorry, Eric,
It's all
I missed
right.
you, I missed you.
No, you're fine. And
Okay.
I wanted to build on that too,
Yeah, please.
because I'm not a librarian, and I'm not a library professional, and I would love to hear about how libraries, the director, the staff, evaluate their programs in the language they use. And so, especially because they're on the ground and they're the ones who do the work,
Right.
you know, I can speak to a broad sense of what assessment is, but I'm, again, not a librarian, so I would like the people who know to tell me.
Exactly.
Right, like,
I
this is
agree.
the standard for the field, this is how the field evaluates these things.
Agreed.
Using some of the, you know, the broad things, but then it also educates us in what we should be looking for, generally speaking, from the professionals on the ground.
I would second that. I think it's where I was having a disconnect and not understanding how we went from like the goals, which already have like 3 items. Like I'm looking at the strategic plan. I pulled it up for myself because
Yep.
it's not on the table. But right, we say we want to offer that goal 1 is offering high quality, diverse, informative programs, services, resources that interest community members. And then there's 1.1, deliver informational, entertaining programs that support literacy, lifelong learning, and community engagement. I feel like these already had a lot of richness and detail to them. So it's why I think I was confused last time about why there was a need to further drill down. And these are not very specific. To Steve's point of offer youth teen programs, okay,
Right, right.
great, we offered some,
Yep.
right? So like
Right.
I'm understanding the responses here because they would be similar to ones I would give, right? If I was prompted with these things.
Right,
And so
right.
I think to your point, Vera, ideally they would be more metric based. And so as we look ahead, I agree with both of you that approaching it from that standpoint of kind of just I mean, this is really well written. The strategic plan is fabulous. I think it really lays a good roadmap for what we wanted to see. And then, yeah, I understand your point, Matt. Like we shouldn't be, and yours, Erica. We don't know what is measurable about the programs. But you know, it sure seems like we want to make sure that you know, how do you identify what the community's evolving needs are and that the services are aligned with that? That would be something to dig
100%.
into and understand. What is a diverse array of programs? You know, is it that we wanted to see like an increase in teen programming, teen-specific programming? Like, that's what's hard for me when I read these tactics, is they're very hard to like,
Yes.
they don't
Yes.
really,
To grasp.
to grasp, yeah,
Yes.
so that was my
Yeah.
point last time, was I wasn't understanding how we got to this from what was already really rich text in the plan.
Okay.
And another thing I'd like to bring up is that a good strategic plan should always provide room for opportunities that come up. You know, 5 years is a long time.
Yes, it
You
is.
know, and things can happen during those 5 years, as we saw in the last
Yes,
5
say
years.
a
we
pandemic.
did.
Okay.
We certainly did.
So the strategic plan should take into account that things happen and give room to the library to do the necessary things.
Right.
You know, to react to opportunities, to react to situations, react to, you know, not only opportunities, but threats in the environment.
Right.
You know, in this type of thing. You know, the more we detail out this stuff, that's the sort of flip side of the coin of the SMART approach, is
Yeah.
the more you get detailed about these things, the more restrictive it is, and it locks the library into maybe too much.
Okay.
And you know, just something to think about. There's no right solution to this. It's just, you know, the most effective at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to a point earlier. I think tactics, rubrics, and metrics really, quite frankly, have the same meanings, but they have different connotations. So you referenced earlier that you didn't like the word tactics, and you talked about metrics. So I'm gonna just throw that out, just that piece right there, because I think it's the way people receive the word that could be considered. Tactics, we think of lawyers, we think of oppositional relationships, right? When we think of metrics, I just think of measurement. When I think of rubrics, I think of, because I work with kids, it's really important with children and youth for them to understand what it is that we're looking for. So we create very concrete, you know, an A would mean that you've taken great detail to research the topic. You've done three pieces of resources, like we're very specific so that our kids can get to the colleges with those hard skills and those soft skills, right? So when I think of rubrics, I think of all positive, because when I started in teaching, we graded over the kids' heads. We talked over the kids' heads. We talked about kids without kids. So I love rubric, and the word has great meaning to me. Metric to me simply means math and measurement. Tactics, I think of lawyers, and I think of cases that are oppositional. So does the board have you talked about wanting to move the language of it to something else. Does the board have a position on that?
You know, the other thing, this document is completed, you know,
Right.
this is the strategic plan.
Right,
But I don't care what we call them.
right,
Here's a sentence: establish program performance standards.
right.
There was a conversation about this, and it was clear that you were going to have you're going to take programs, and you're going to have performance standards, and then you're going to measure those.
Right.
Pursue programs collaborative with the Auburn Public School. Where are the 5 or 6 programs? We didn't say 12 programs or 6 because there weren't anything,
Right.
there weren't things going on, so we said, just go list some. And then the same thing with this offered youth and teen programs. If we had this time to be able to do things, just list 3 or 4 things, that's
Right.
all that you
What are we
tried to
doing?
do.
Right, right.
That's it.
Okay,
And I think it's like in one-time topical programs, begin offering series-based. Well, we have done series-based programs based on grants for children before, but I don't know, what have we done with adults? I don't want to put you on the spot, Molly, but do we have, except for that career development thing, that guy that came in and did some of that stuff, there aren't any programs for adults that are in the same way you do have the STEM programs for children. You know, I don't want to put you on the spot, that's okay.
so do we have programs for adults?
Mary will put you on the spot.
I guess I will.
Just for one example,
For
we have
clarifying.
the historian is coming in, she's doing a series of programs.
Oh, great.
So
It's geared to the target
It's,
audience is adults. Okay.
Do we have tax assistance, that kind of thing? No? Tax assistance, income tax?
We provide tax forms.
Forms, okay.
And that's why I was looking for something like that. If our kid does things like that, they're happy to use libraries to be able to do that work. And those are the kinds of things, so it wasn't that that this was supposed to be a real tough thing to do. It was to try to do things that weren't going on.
Right.
And sadly, there's still a lot of things that aren't going on.
But I think the other piece of it, going back to Steve's point, is we want to have a transparent dialogue about, because our role is really an advisory role, a policy-making role, and we do evaluate how things are going.
Well, we understand now that we
No.
will be able to evaluate.
Correct,
That's right.
but I
yeah.
think what you're saying is keeping it very transparent so that there is an influence. We do need to influence one another about how programming is moving forward.
Would this,
So do I take it that the team doesn't really care about the language of tactics versus metrics versus rubrics?
I mean,
That's not
I-
a non-issue?
I think it's important.
You do?
I think, to speak the same language, speak the same
Okay.
language with the library is
Okay.
important. One thing about metrics for me is it's a very precise term for me.
Yes, it is.
Metrics is made up of indicators and targets.
Yep,
And,
right.
we don't really have quantifiable indicators here, as you said,
Yeah,
Matt.
yeah.
Just list out what's there and follow up on it. I don't think we can be that specific, and measurable in those terms. A lot of these are more like zeros and ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Either
They
you
are.
have performance standards or you
You
don't.
don't.
That's right.
That type of thing.
Right,
I think that's absolutely right, Steve.
correct, I agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
Is there a term that typically librarians would use for some of these, like rubric I get as a teacher?
Yeah,
And it's funny, because
yeah.
my students come in asking for the rubric, and I'm like, here's a guide sheet. I don't use rubrics. Some of my colleagues do. I find them rigid, and I agonize more over those.
Yeah.
I know a B paper when I see it.
Right, right.
Right, but I get that flexibility
Yeah,
in
yeah.
college. But, so for me, I'm like rubric, I start sweating and go, oh my God, I don't know if it's a 2 or a 3.
You know-
But I also don't know, does the library, or do librarians, what is the scale when you generally are assessing these things? Like, what's the terms that you all use in the field? I don't know that, so I don't,
That is a question I can.
yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
But just as an aside, rubric for me, I transact the majority of my work in French. In French, rubrique means category, means title, means heading.
That's what
You
it
know,
means, it's
yeah.
flat,
Yeah.
there's no meaning.
It has no meaning.
No.
Yeah.
That's interesting, but see, that's very, very important. And going back to the point that we're always talking about inclusion, is understanding not only what is the denotation, what is the terminology of something or the definition, but then what does it mean to different people? So what would it mean in one country versus another country? It's a really important point. And as we are looking at, like we always talk about, how do we know about the changing populations? What about, we need to know what that is, and how people receive things, how they perceive things, whether they feel like they have a voice in the community. Like, those are very, very important points, so I appreciate that a lot. But I'm so
It's
we'll
funny,
reach out
Germans would
to
do
the
that.
library director. I'm sorry, did I miss you?
No, it's like having a better understanding of how the library defines success for the
Okay.
programming, for that first example,
Good
right?
question.
Maybe it's not specific standards because, yeah, success at the Christmas decorating of the reindeer with stickers, there's not a lot of performance standards other than that, we had 100% filled, everyone loved it and the kids left happy. And so, it's like, I don't, performance standards almost feels rigid, right? So I think some of this is thinking about how you guys feel what's high five worthy at the end, right? Did everybody come and the kids were all laughing and having a great time?
Right.
Not every program is gonna have clear
No, but-
standards, right? And so
This
that's
is a
something I
library.
wanna,
Right.
no, I know, I wanna,
Yeah.
but to understand what are the ones that we would really want to understand, measuring literacy as that's a long-term thing, and if
Right.
it's a
But there are
one day or 1
short-term
week
goals.
program,
Right.
sure. But so that's what I'm saying, is what's the definition of success for these? And
Right.
I don't know how you measure specific performance standards to Erica's point. I don't know how the
But
library
this
thinks
is
about
important,
that.
though, this
But-
is important,
but
let me
I-
just make one point, though.
Yeah.
Because I think we have one formal meeting in May prior to
Yeah.
reorganizing, so this is rich, because I think what I'm hearing, I'm sorry, Matt, I cut you off, but I think what I'm hearing from the board is, we need to know what more, and really, and like these terms that are being used, we need more specifics. We also want to know what would be a receivable language for us to be able to measure things as a board. And then the third thing, going back to your point, Steve, is we need to have an open dialogue about this in order to, if we are gonna dig in and we're going to create the next steps of a strategic plan, it needs to be very transparent. And it shouldn't feel as though.
And concrete.
And concrete, but I also
Yeah.
think an important point, and this is left unsaid, but I'm just gonna say it because I'm that person. I think a lot of the struggles that we've had is that what we're looking for as a board is to evaluate programming. We're not looking at evaluating the library director. And I think that, and this is where my position in education is key to this role that I'm sitting in. It's important to me as an educator that I could be replaced with anyone. And that person would be able to move the system on, because the focus of my work is the kids, it's not me. I think similarly, if you're any leader, whether you're in the library, you're in a school, the system should drive what we're doing. So a lot of what I'm concerned about is the historical, if we've been over the past 10 or 15 years, if one person is the keeper of all the information, it's not transparent, it's not public, and it's not something that we can have an influence moving forward. But if we can create some sort of transparent, whether it's a document, and it doesn't have to be a super, indicator fixated piece, but I think it needs to be something that's transparent, that we can post, that we're looking at improving this by a certain amount. This language means this language. We're not judging anybody's performance. What we're doing is trying to move the library forward and make sure that we have input from stakeholders. Is that fair?
Well,
Did I
I just
overstep?
want to go
Go ahead.
back to Lindsay's point. I mean,
Yeah.
I heard what you said, and
Yeah.
I get back to that.
Yeah,
But Lindsay, I'm not opposed to having children's programs that are fun.
yeah,
I would not want to have any program that is not literacy-based, that does
Right.
not have some
Value,
value, that
yeah.
in some way doesn't do something about reading.
right,
I think they make that attempt. I don't think we've gotten any of that information here, but I think the attempt is made at the library.
right,
If all we do is replicate what you do in a preschool program,
right,
then I think we failed.
right,
This is a library.
Right.
It's not a preschool program. They're commercial ones all over town.
right.
And I think that that's what's really important, that we're doing something unique and something special
And
with
welcoming,
children.
and welcoming,
Well, yeah, for sure.
yep,
And these words came from library specialists, the person that was a consultant here, consults with libraries all over the state,
right,
and actually New England.
yeah,
So the people that were involved in this from the Board of Trustees, they didn't know language, what kind of language from another language. But the consultants knew this, and probably the 20 to 30 library directors that we spoke to were also helpful in all of this kind of stuff. And that's where a lot of these things came from.
Okay.
They didn't come out of nowhere.
right, right,
Now, the tactics weren't listed, and Lindsay raised an important point last week. Where do these come from? Well, they came from because the consultant believed, and the town manager at the time believed, that there had to be more clarification to goals, or we were not going to get anywhere. That we would not have a product of any kind at the end.
I agree.
And so that's why that was supposed to help the person figure out a way to reach those objectives, was to do these kinds of things, regardless of what you call them. That there was supposed to be a way. If for the first goal on programs and service, establish program performance standards. Now, I would have assumed that a person, a library professional, and I know we only have one person with a degree in library science here, but that's what I would expect that person would be able to understand and to be able to translate, so that we would be able, because this is library language things in here, that they would be able to translate that for us.
Right.
And I do think that this is much better than nothing, way better.
I agree, yeah.
100%.
So, even though, in lots of places I have, whoever said it's either or, yes or no, 0 or 1, that's what I have in a lot of places. But I do think that whenever we get a library director back at our meetings, we could have conversations about these things and be able to move somewhere with them. But I think it's very difficult to, I could talk about every one of these things. I have comments, but I'm not, there's no point in that, is there? I mean,
There's always
it's
a
for our
point.
edification. What?
There's always a point.
Yeah, but I mean, for whose edification is this?
Right.
And
Well-
for what purpose?
But I think going back to the point about the Barbara Alvarez, did I pronounce her name correctly? Barbara Alvarez?
How about it's?
It's close, I want to say Alvarez, but that's not, the same spelling, different pronounce. Anyway, it was like professional development for me, because in all the things that we said, the world of library, the world of school, I learned a lot from her. And what she did is almost like professional development activities. We had to brainstorm things. She had to explain what all the other libraries were doing. So I felt like I gained what I felt like I developed in my knowledge because of her leadership. But I think as a board, it would be rich if we could experience that on a monthly basis, and that we could, have open conversation. To your point, Matt, I totally agree, but I think going back to what Vera said, I think it's really important that we are working in partnership, but also that we're, I'd love to have the library director back at our meetings. That would be awesome. But for right now, I want to make sure in the spirit of time, it's 7:20. What is our goals for our next meetings? Because right now, I do have only one other thing on the agenda, which I want Erica to be able to speak to herself as library person of the month. But I want to hear from the board, because we have 1 hour meeting in May. If anyone wanted to have a subcommittee on any particular thing, we could do that as well. But what would be the goal? We have our tactics, to your point, we have something, right? What do we want to do with this? Because the goal of the last meeting would be to pass on whatever the goals are to the next board, which would be reorganizing in mid-May, 2 weeks later.
Well, hold on, Steve, did you want to say something?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So in that case, I will say something.
Okay. Go for it.
Go for it, Vera.
So we were gonna meet to develop a template, and we haven't been able to this last time because we were all traveling at separate times, because naturally that's how things work on a month-to-month basis. But now that we have the strategic plan, and we have the tactics, and we see the tactics in action, which I would, if we're gonna default to a word, perhaps assessment in the interim, so it's not, shady sounding.
Works for me.
We can kind of settle on assessment for the time being. So
Yeah.
if there's interest between the two of you still, and we can actually all be in the state at the same time, maybe we
At least the
can.
continent.
Yeah, right? Maybe we can get together and take the two and see if we can kind of work it into a form that can be applied for next year's report, right? Because we're looking at this annually. I also think that we should plan perhaps to review these answers and discuss these answers, because I think that's important. I think that for anybody who tunes in to see this meeting, and we know that people do, it's a benefit because they don't get to sit at the table and read the paperwork with us.
Right.
So,
So is that a question? Do you want to have a?
Do you wanna
subcommittee?
I
have-
agree with that, yeah.
okay, perfect.
I do too. What would be the format of that, Vera?
The format of the.
Subcommittee.
Oh, the subcommittee, I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about the next meeting.
Nope, we're gonna get to that next. What are you thinking in terms of the subcommittee? Are you thinking
We have
about
to
a
set a
meeting?
date right now.
That's right, all right.
Right.
Not Tuesdays.
Wednesdays are good for me.
Okay,
I think Wednesdays are okay. Yeah, Wednesdays work. Let me just
Alright.
look out a couple weeks, but yeah.
Is
so
that
we'll,
okay?
yeah. So if
What's the
everybody,
goal of the subcommittee?
to look at the strategic plan and to look at the tactics and see if we can kind of take the best and get the, either clarify language or where we say, like, for example, you know, grow these things, show growth, or if you, feel free to jump in, like, you're always welcome.
Well, I guess-
No, I don't mean
Yeah.
that. But what I do mean, I guess were there be any concerns, what are the questions for a library director? What are the questions that we'd want to ask a library director? And maybe that's what you guys can formulate, questions related to this, is that?
Well,
So-
that-
so,
that-
go ahead.
That would be in the course of discussing the, you know, how we review the report
Okay, all right,
and that kind of thing, yeah.
okay, I like it.
So 11 o'clock Wednesday, Heritage Cafe?
That sounds awesome.
Oh, sorry, like, hang on, what day? Next Wednesday?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Would be the
10th.
10th.
Yeah, daytime is hard for
Hard.
me.
Could be in the afternoon for me, how's that for you?
3 on would be fine.
3 o'clock Wednesday?
I believe it works. I
Then,
don't know.
but Heritage Cafe is only open until what, 2?
It's open till 2.
We will find.
We'll find another place.
Yeah, we will find
Dunkin'
another
Donuts has a
place.
place you
Dunkin'
could,
Donuts, yeah,
True.
that
they have
meeting room.
a room, yeah.
Yeah.
So can we ask you to sort of be our leaders at the next meeting and just sort of in leadership of where are we going with these? Where are we going with, how do we want to move forward with the tactics and where we're at, moving into our next strategic plan? So if you could share, I'm looking to you because you seem to be the cheerleader here. Sort of share what your outcome of your meeting was, and we'll start a discussion there. And the hope would be to tighten up what our goals are for the next Board of Trustees year,
Okay.
which would start, again, our last meeting is the 1st of May, then we reorganize 2 weeks into May, so we have a formal meeting, but then we don't meet again until September. So my proposal would be that we have sort of a concrete plan about where we're going
Mhm.
with our strategic plan tactics and how we want to move forward as a team. And that would give us, and going back to one of our former members, John, used to talk about how important it was for him to have benchmarks. If this is our goal, when do we want them by? So what I would ask for the team, the subcommittee, if you could think about where you want to see things, like, okay, so if we on May 1st, this would be our objective of that meeting. And then in September, even in a general way, where would we like to take the tactics? And then where, just the trajectory, where do we want to go?
But this is forward-looking with the
Forward-looking.
new strategic plan.
Correct.
So like a production schedule for the new strategic plan.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
You come
that
up with
makes
the words,
sense to
that's
me.
I love it.
I eat these words for breakfast.
Yeah, I love it, though. I completely agree. So
think you
do
need
we have
better
any more
breakfast.
Yeah, I know,
commentary? I really appreciate your leadership, Lindsay, Vera, and Steve, on that matter. I feel like that was a very productive conversation. Does anybody want to add anything before I turn the table over to
Yes,
Dr. Breesacker? Yes.
yes. We're aware that we can now set goals for the Auburn Public Library Director.
Correct.
The Board of Trustees, that's really part of our work.
That's correct.
The evaluation eventually comes on those goals as well. Well, we did a set of goals in September.
Okay.
What I would like to do is to, and I guess we'd almost have to vote again. Here, I'll try to do this very fast.
Okay.
The thing was to hire a librarian, an assistant director. Well, that would either be for September or December,
Okay.
which is now in process. So we'd have to change the date of that.
Okay.
Work with whatever resources available to return to a full staff. I had a guess of October 1st, 2025.
Yep.
No, 2024, that's
Yep,
still
yep.
this year. Then offer technology classes, that's one of the things in this report, we said offer classes, all the libraries offer classes, we don't offer any classes.
Okay.
It says offer technology classes and other young adult programs, at least 30, with measurable outcomes aside from craft offerings, and I'm going to change that date to April 1st, 2025.
Okay.
So there's plenty of time for it. And then the monthly Board of Trustees Director's Report should include those 3 things that we said to include before. Those would just be ongoing.
Right.
But I would like, before you have to send those to the director, I think we should have a vote on that, just to confirm the vote that we did last September.
Correct. Okay.
So I would move on those
Okay.
goals for the Auburn Public Library Director.
Okay, so that's Matt. Do we have a second?
So do we have these? Where are these?
So these
You would not hear yet. I have this,
Okay.
I have a copy I can show you.
that would be great.
I mean, the dates I just read are not on this
So
one.
It
this
was
was
distributed at a
from,
past meeting.
this was from September 6th, 2023. So what we talked about is establishing goals.
And at that time, we were gonna ask the town manager to do that, but it's, the town manager has clarified for us that we can set these goals.
Yeah, yeah.
Should we do that in the May meeting? Because then we have time that way, especially, because I remember voting on
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
but I was here in September. Right, and then that way we can have a fuller discussion about where those came from.
Yeah.
Because I know they came from the strategic plan and they came
No,
from.
no, they came actually from
Oh,
us.
from the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if nothing else, maybe we have a fuller discussion about that in May.
I would support that.
They're not gonna have a change before.
No,
then.
no.
Yeah.
Well, we
exactly.
voted on it already, but I support you. Does everybody in agreement with that? So in other words,
I'll
making
remove
sure.
my motion.
Right, just
Okay.
if we could, make sure that every member is completely oriented on what we're voting on, that would be awesome. I totally
And I
agree.
think that gives us the time
I
to, you know, because then that's for the next year, then we'll all break for summer.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing's gonna happen anyway in between, so that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It
but,
doesn't matter.
but I will say that, you know, Vera and I have had a great experience, meeting with the library, the town manager and the assistant town manager, and they're very on board in terms of having an assistant director. I know there was a process that somebody was in the process of accepting the position, and they decided it wasn't the right time for them. So that process did move on. We're happy to see that it's being posted now. They're definitely on point and on board that we need to fill up the staff. They've been very, very outspoken about that. And in terms of your other pieces, Matt, yeah, I would agree that if Lindsay could be able to research exactly where that came from. and the
September
specifics.
23rd, or the
Yeah.
September meeting.
And you could even look at the past meetings, they're all on,
Yeah.
we started recording our meetings on, live stream back in 2020. So any meeting, you can go back and you can read it and you can look at the minutes. Is that-
If you
is
have any
that-
trouble finding it, I'll send you a copy.
Okay, all right.
Mary, just
Yes.
one thing.
Yes.
The assistant director
Yes,
is different from the library associate that's already been engaged, is that correct? Yeah, so the library associate has already been engaged.
The new person
The
that
new
started
person.
that, yeah, that's separate.
Is that Alicia?
Alyssa.
Alyssa, yeah, okay, thank you.
that's a good question.
Hmm.
They did, actually, they came right up, they had many interviews with an assistant director. They didn't call it a deputy director, it was an assistant director.
Yeah.
It really looked positive, and then the person just said it wasn't the right time for that
Right.
person.
Right.
But they were thrilled with the quality of the candidate,
Mhm.
and we were excited to hear that we're moving forward, so that's great. So enough delaying the process, Dr. Breesacker.
trying
Would
to
you
delay the
introduce yourself to the community?
You're hoping the bell rings.
Pretty
Right?
much, pretty much. Yeah, so I'm Erica Breesacker. You can just call me Erica. I only make people I'm mad at call me Dr. Breesacker. I'm actually not from Massachusetts at all. I'm from Wisconsin. I was born in Milwaukee and grew up in a very small town north of there. That actually reminds me a lot of Auburn, in both good and bad ways, right? Because it's hard to jump into a new place. So my husband's from St. Louis, and we met in college, and we went to school in Central Illinois, and then started the long trek across the country because we were both at graduate school. So I have a PhD in history. My husband has a PhD in sociology, and we went through grad school, Southern Illinois, Northeast Ohio at Kent State, and then here, teaching at Worcester State. So my area of expertise is German history, so I read a lot of European history. I teach in French history and Italian history and German history, and also public history and working in museums. So that's my other hat, is I have a degree in museum studies. So I read a lot, and I write a lot. And so being on the library board was just really exciting because that was the formative thing. I grew up going to our little library that was in a corner of a room when I was a kid because my town had 1,600 people when I was little. It's now bustling 4,500. Look at us go.
Yeah.
And, now they actually have a library, floor. It's pretty exciting. They now have a museum that just opened in the last, year and a half. So my town is now a real town. We still don't have a McDonald's or a Dairy Queen, but hey, little by little. But my whole history was just growing up reading anything that had words. And I was the kid who checked out the encyclopedias at school in first and second and third grade, where people were like, "You don't read those, do you?" And yes, I did. And that has continued, and my house has stacks of books. Watch out, people have knickknacks. I have stacks of books that fall over, and my office at work has stacks of books that fall over. And I've raised readers as children, too, so. We have books everywhere, and it's why it's been really exciting to be on this end of things. I'm not used to being on this side. I'm usually used to fighting against trustees, not being a trustee. Which is why
Different kind.
it's definitely a different hat to wear, but it's also interesting to see it on this end too, and watch what librarian staff do and professionals do, and how it works in the community, and getting, I've lived in Massachusetts now almost 12 years and lived in Auburn since 2013, so it's another way to get connected to the community, so. And one of my kids was born in Massachusetts, but the rest of them were born in different states. I also had kids across the country, so Illinois and Ohio and Massachusetts, but.
Sounds pretty risque.
No. But yeah, my oldest is about to graduate from Salem State, so.
Oh, neat,
Yeah, very exciting.
neat.
Really quickly adopted Massachusetts and New England, though he was in 5th grade when we moved here, so, yeah, it's been interesting.
What's your favorite thing about Massachusetts?
The sense of humor is very much like Wisconsin, and I grew up in another place that calls it a bubbler. So when Worcester people say, "Where's the bubbler?" I know what they mean. And when I went home and said to Milwaukee people, there's another place in the world that calls it a bubbler, they didn't believe me until I showed them. So it was really funny to me that I found the only other place that calls a drinking fountain a bubbler. But
Awesome.
yeah, the sense of humor is good. When I was in Ohio, my students never could tell if I was kidding, and here they don't care.
Right.
Which is great, because I'm a very sarcastic, sort of dry sense of humor person, and students connect with that. There's the self-deprecating Midwest thing,
Yeah.
and New Englanders aren't all that different,
Yeah.
honestly. So I really like that, and it took a little bit to really get roots here, but now that we have, it's I can't, even though I'm Midwestern through and through, I'm sort of that was old Erica. New Erica lives here.
So forgive me on this one, but you just published a book. Can you tell me about that, please?
Yeah, so I wrote a book that was built on my dissertation, built on research that I did in Germany. My area where I study and where I research is in Lübeck, which not many people have heard of, but it's on the Baltic Sea in northwestern Germany. And the other small fact about me is that I don't fly, so I take boats when I go to Germany to do
Really?
research.
Oh.
My ever-suffering husband navigates months where I'm away doing research, because you never know when it'll be. But my book, built on my dissertation, was about Lübeck and festival from the 1920s through the 1960s, and went over the unfortunate Nazi time, but then also got bits of the Cold War, British occupation, and the 1920s after World War I, and lots of marzipan eating, because that is what Lübeck is famous for. So yeah, that book came out after working on that project for 17 years. It's actually older than 2 of my kids.
Wow.
And now I'm working on a second book, but the first one finally is out and done, and in theory, I'll stop talking about it.
Well, what's the title, though?
The title is called Festival, Culture, and Identity in Lübeck, Nordic Days 1920 to 1960.
Awesome.
Very exciting title. It's such an academic title that it hurts. Yeah. We academics write very formulaically for titles. There's always a colon, there's always something pithy.
There you go.
You never know.
Gonna put that degree to work.
Yeah.
Something Pithy?
Pithy.
Yes.
Pithy. Yeah, no, the title was totally different. It was Nordic Days, and then my editor went literally 3 weeks before it went to press. He was like, yeah, we're gonna change the title. We're gonna flip it. And okay, I don't care.
At this point.
anymore.
Right.
As long as it works, just. send it
17
out.
years is 17 years. isn't
17
it?
years is 17 years, yes.
Yeah.
And the whole family was very happy when that book came out. The downside is I was dumb and signed a second contract before the first book was done. So now that one's 2 years late. And so don't tell my editor.
Where are you
She's waiting.
traveling to for that one?
Actually, nowhere. That one was based on pandemic experiences and the like material culture of masks.
Oh.
So looking at masks not as like symbols, but museum objects.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. So the next book has to wait. That one I'll be going back to Germany for, but probably not until at least next summer. If I can talk Alex into letting me get on a boat again.
Yeah.
Just a few minutes would make the airplane ride so much
Yeah,
easier.
that's what everybody says. I haven't flown since January of 2001. I'm good.
Oh,
Trains, boats, and automobiles.
oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Any questions?
Yeah, besides your, obvious, German heritage.
Sure.
Why Germany?
I don't know. It's just fascinating
Just
to me.
Something you glommed onto,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Well, and so, both sides. My maiden name is Kamholtz. My married
Okay.
name is Breesacker. I don't go by Erica Kamholtz Breesacker because it sounds like a law firm.
Yes.
And it doesn't fit on the tax
That's
form.
right, that's
So, my husband's family is from right along the Rhine River, and if I want to poke fun at them, I ask if they're from the French side or the German side, and that
Mm.
usually gets them mad at me. And then my family's from the northeastern side of Germany, so it's just, I've always been interested by the whole thing.
Right.
And of course, everybody wants to know why Nazis. So that
Why
became,
not?
why Nazis, not why not, but why Nazis?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that always has been just a driving question, so
Yeah.
someday I'll leave Nazis behind, I
Right.
hope,
Mm.
if they'll let
I
me.
don't know if that's possible.
I don't know.
Fascinating. though.
Yeah, so,
That's awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Very good,
much.
thanks,
Yeah.
Erica.
That was
Thank you.
awesome and very generous.
oh, well,
Now, who would we have, Matt or Vera, to be our person of the month next month?
I'm gonna vote for Vera.
I'm gonna second that motion. That's gonna be an
She's
interesting
pretty
one.
fast, so I was taking a chance.
So do you support that?
What? Yeah, I guess, only because he said it before I had a chance to.
Awesome, awesome.
Oh, you were gonna volunteer?
No, I was
Oh.
gonna volunteer you.
So for the next meeting, Vera, thank you for
Great.
accepting your nomination to be the member of the month. That was an awesome story. I learned so much about you. I appreciate you. So our next meeting board is here in the Merriam Room on Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 at 6:30 PM. It is currently.
Wait, Jose,
Oh.
can we make the next meeting either the 22nd or the 29th? The
reorganization.
Yeah, the reorganization, the voting is on the 21st, so we could meet on the 22nd or the 29th.
So are you talking about for the reorganization? Okay, so you're talking about May.
Yeah, still
Okay,
May.
so this is our next meeting, but are you saying for the reorganization, set it
Yeah.
up right now? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because our set meeting is always the first Wednesday of every month at 6:30
Right.
here. Well, team, we are, what did you say the voting date is the 21st?
21st.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's election day.
That's Tuesday, so we could meet either that Wednesday, the 22nd, or the 29th.
So can we look at our calendars for a second? May 22nd or May 29th? Thank you for bringing that up, Matt, that's
Either of
important.
those
I
are fine.
suggest the
Would
20.
would that be my last meeting? Or
Your last meeting would be, I believe, on the 3rd.
the 3rd, okay.
Unless people decided to write you in.
I was gonna say,
We'd like
that's my
to keep you,
plan.
please.
I would really appreciate if you'd stay, but that's just in my heart. So we're talking about the day after Election Day, which is May 22nd, or the week later, 8 days later, which is the 29th.
Yeah,
I can do either one.
I can do either one.
same
Are
here.
they, what day of the week?
It's
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays and Wednesdays? I
Yeah.
would suggest the 29th.
Lindsay, do you have a vote?
Because
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Does
that work? Matt, does that work for you?
Yep.
All right, so we will say for our reorganization meeting, that will be May 29th, same thing, 6:30 here in the Merriam Room. But our next meeting will be Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 at 6:30 PM. And I have right now at 7:45, do I have a motion to close the meeting?
So
To
moved.
adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Don't all
Okay.
speak at once.
So we're good. So we have Erica and Matt. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We
Thank
are
you.
adjourned.
Motion to adjourn is always the most popular.
That's right.
I have to say.
Thank you, Alice. I appreciate
Are we
you.
done?